When the world was moving fast like this, it came to a standstill with the rapid spread of novel coronavirus. Today's topic for you all is leadership based on business ethics and corporate governance. Let me start by introducing myself. I am Mohammad Fazil Mohammad Inshaf, representing UAB student ID 2009667. I am recording this video on 12th October 2020. According to world-renowned brain training expert Jim Kivick, he says, in order to learn anything, you have to start by unlearning first. With that note, let I ask my audiences and viewers to unlearn whatever you know about business ethics and corporate governance. Let me start introducing the table of contents for today. Section 1, I'll be explaining business ethics. In that, we will be discussing what is ethics, what is business ethics, and triple bottom line reporting will be discussed. In session 2, I'll be explaining you all about corporate governance. In that, we will discuss what is corporate governance and overview on the concept of corporate governance, which will deal with the basics concepts in relation to corporate governance. In section 3, we'll understand the importance of business ethics and corporate governance for an organization by pulling out real-world examples of famous failures in relation to corporate governance and business ethics. In section 4, we'll understand the impact on leadership based on business ethics and corporate governance in relation to COVID-19. In section 5 is for conclusion, section 6 for reference and bibliography list. Section 1, Business Ethics. What is ethics? Ethics is a word which derives from the Greek word ethos, which means a way of living. Ethics is a philosophical study which based on human actions towards a society. Ethics asks the simple question, what should we do as a human being? When this question is being raised, there are a wide variety of subtopics arises like uh, values, principles, beliefs, and norms. So these uh, topics will help us in making our choices, and we can identify whether the choices that we make are right or wrong. This is known as ethics. Let me prove my point or explain more with these examples that I have given below. Accepting what is not similar to us and also avoid racism, hatred towards a community or ethnicity, and also keep away from all sorts of unethical behaviors. You know, in America, when George Floyd was arrested and killed, it was considered unethical behavior by the large black community, and they started protesting. The second point, the law should be just and upright for every individual should receive his due right that they deserve. So the black community felt they didn't receive their right of law. So it was they find that the law was not just and upright. For that they protested to receive their due right that they deserve. And the third point, act with transparency without being biased to yourself or a recommended person to you. Here I just wanted to explain to you, if you are an HR person, if an individual was recommended to you by a known person, then if you put him through the right interview process and with the other candidates, then your act is considered ethical. In other words, you select him without an interview process just because you know him, or someone recommended him that you know, then this action is considered to be unethical. What is business ethics? Let us start with some history. It is a concept that came into rise with the anti-big business protest in USA in the period of 1970s. It is a concept that emerged in the period of 1980s and well developed in the period of 1980s and 1990s. In this period, many organizations and universities started to research, study, and explore this topic, and actually they try to adopt this topic into their institutions and organizations in the conduct of business. Business ethic identifies the moral problems that can rise while functioning the business. So, business ethics is also another type of applied ethics that reflects in the old forms of business conduct, and it set guidelines on individuals how they have to operate within the business. Few examples of business ethics are code of conduct. In Facebook, the code of conduct identifies conflicts of interest, harassment, public disclosure, reporting violations, copyright content issues are dealt there. Business compliance is where the organization uh, 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 engaging in accordance with the rules of the regulators. Financial compliance is where the organization is not taking part in any unethical businesses such as drug trafficking, weapons transaction, uh, anti-money laundering transactions, etc. And corporate social responsibilities where the organization is giving back to the society, environment, and community where they are operating. Triple bottom line reporting. It is a concept that explains that the business functions with the objective of earning profit. While earning profit, the business should focus and give consideration to people and planet. 3Ps explains that the organization's objective is not only to earn profit but also to balance it with the people and planet while earning profit. Section 2, Corporate Governance. What is corporate governance? Let us start with some history. The concept can be reflected on the works of Burley and Means in the period of 1930s. However, this concept became well known in the period of 1970. I feel the same period applies to business ethics too. In particular, this concept of corporate governance applies to organizations, how the organizations are run, directed, and controlled by board of directors and board subcommittees. The businesses are becoming increasingly large and complex. Therefore, the owners are unable to take care of their businesses. Therefore, they have to appoint someone on behalf of them to act upon their best interest. Therefore, they appoint board of directors. This is where the concept of corporate governance arises. An overview on the concept of corporate governance. In this section, we will understand the basic concepts in relation to corporate governance. The concept of corporate governance urges us to maintain effective relationship with the organizational stakeholders such as shareholders, board of directors, managers, employees, customers, and creditors in order to improve the performance of the organization. Corporate governance is based on four pillars. They are namely accountability, fairness, transparency, and independence. Let us take one pillar at a time. Accountability is where it ensures that the senior management is accountable to the board and the board is accountable to the shareholders. Fairness is where protecting shareholder rights, treating all shareholders, even the minority, equitably is dealt with. Transparency is where all material matters are disclosed, like the financial situation, ownership, and the performance to uh, the stakeholders of the organization transparently. And independence is where non-executive directors that they are independent of operations of the business will scrutinize and question the decisions made by the dependent directors. An example on good and bad corporate governance are good. The director board is well structured. We'll discuss this in a minute. Bad. The director board remunerations are not in line with the best practices. We'll discuss this in upcoming slides. Board structure. There are usually two types of board structures, multi-tier and unitary board. Multi-tier is a very rarely used board structure which consists of supervisory and management board. Supervisory board is where non-executive directors sits and who have no operational responsibility in the business. Management board is where executive directors sits and who have operational responsibility in the business. More frequently used board type is unitary board, which consists of one board with that consists of non-executive directors and executive directors. So this is more frequently used because it saves time and results in effective decision making since it only consists of one board. The approaches are usually either rules based or principle based. Rules based are if you do not follow it, you have to end up in a jail. Like in USA, there is an act called Sarbanes-Oxley. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And principle based are like best practices that is put forward in terms of a code of conduct such as ICGN, International Corporate Governance Network or OECD. Best practices. At least 50% of the board needs to be NEDs, that is, non-executive directors, in order to scrutinize and question the decisions made by the executive directors. The chairman and the CEO should be separate. Since chairman who chairs the board and CEO who manages the executives of the business. So if you appoint one person to this role, there is too much power bestowed on one person's hands. So in order to function effectively and to avoid future adverse impacts on the business and shareholders, we should separate this position as chairman and CEO into two ends. Board subcommittees such as audit, nomination, remuneration, as well risk committee. So audit deals with reliability of the financial information, nomination committee decides who sits on the board, and remuneration provides guidance on the payment measures to executive directors. And risk committee deals with the internal controls of the business. Governance codes usually focus on LEARR. So I have summarizing whatever I have spoke into these topics: leadership, effectiveness, accountability, remuneration, and relation with shareholders. So I just wanted to summarize everything that I have spoke to you all in this slide. Hope you all can remember about remuneration, about accountability, what I have said, and relations with shareholders. So if you can remember that, I have done a very good job by now. Section 3: Importance of Business Ethics and Corporate Governance for an Organization. Ethics and Corporate Governance Failure Incidents. Enron Scandal. Enron was a 100 billion revenue making organization in USC with over 29,000 employees. So they filed for bankruptcy of 63.4 billion USD in 2002, which was the highest recorded bankruptcy of the organization at that time in US. So what the Enron executive did was they used accounting loopholes to hide millions of losses and debts from books of accounting. They actually used the auditor Arthur Anderson also in this scandal to hide all evidences of these losses and huge debts from the books of accounting. So this misled the board of governors and all its stakeholders. So we can say that uh, Enron executives acted in their best interest, not in the best interest of their shareholders. So this goes against the basic of corporate governance. As a result, US government brought in many changes. They introduced rules and regulations to ensure financial reporting accuracy and reliability is maintained within the organizations. In order to ensure that, they have introduced an act called Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which imposed penalties for businesses with bad practices for cooking their books or attempt of fraudulent behaviors towards their shareholders. Also, they advised the independent auditors, that is the external auditors, to act with independency without being dependent on the client or acting with biasness to the client. Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers was heavily investing on subprime mortgages and commercial real estate. So Lehman Brothers had a business strategy of focusing on high leverage and high risk taking businesses in order to earn high profits. So, however, they had a lack of capital. lack of shared capital. So this resulted in a weak balance sheet to withstand any financial turbulences. So with the global financial crisis, they had a severe impact on their business and they have to file for bankruptcy in 2008. So the Richard Fuld, the chairman and CEO of the Lehman Brothers, tried to secure a deal, but all those meetings and discussions failed miserably. So this therefore the US government felt that they are not going to bail out the Lehman Brothers, and they felt that letting Lehman Brothers failing is with the best interest for the nation. As a result, many observers identified the main reason for failure of Lehman Brothers was the dysfunction of the board of directors. That is, the board was inactive. They were uninformed what is going to happen in the future, and they were more reactive than rather than being proactive. And the problem of agency. It is a very interesting topic. The executives and employees in the organization having a lack of ownership in the business, so they acted on their own interest rather than the interest of the owners. So why they acted on their own interest for high performance based compensation? So the concept of high performance based compensation arises uh, with Bill Clinton was concerned about executive pay and introduced measures to control the upper limit of the executive pay by fixing it at 1 million USD. So, however, he mentioned that if the executives were performing well, this can result in increase in pay. So, this resulted that executives and the employees to uh, act on their own interest to receive a high performance based compensation, and in the end, this resulted in bringing the investment giant Lehman Brothers to bankruptcy collapse. Question 4. The impact on leadership based on business ethics and corporate governance during COVID-19. Business operation. Many organizations forced to transform to remote working arrangements. Uh, in case of Saudi Aramco, they digitalized the workforce and also held meetings through Skype to discourage any physical contact. Dividend distribution. In these adverse market conditions, there will be severe impact on your cash flow, bank balances, revenue, and key business partners. So you have to think about reinvesting your profits rather than uh, providing a dividend distribution. But however, in case of Saudi Aramco, they announced a 18.75 billion USD uh, cash dividends in the first quarter of 2020. This is mainly because they had a very strong balance sheet. So in order to encourage their investors, they did this. So BCP and disaster recovery. So in terms of the challenges to the business continuity and effects on day-to-day activities of the business needs to come up with plans, be proactive. So in case of Saudi Aramco, they had a joint venture with John Hopkins Aramco Healthcare. This enabled them to readiness to face this pandemic effectively and to stop the spread of novel coronavirus within the organization. Business communication. In order to have effective decision making process, they have to have we have to find solutions to meet online and execute the business plans, and also we have to discuss are we going to have meetings, the annual general meeting virtually, or we are going to postpone it to a different date. So there aren't any laws governing this type of case situation, so the company has to come up with policies and procedures. And also the business communication should be there to update the employees and the stakeholders with regard to COVID-19. So Saudi Aramco came up with a 24 by 7 help desk to update its staff in 4 languages. Business models. We can see many businesses that are predominantly focused on one particular industry, such as tourism, hospitality, having a severe impact. And some of the organizations within these industries led to extinction. In case of Saudi Aramco, they were predominantly focused on crude oil. However, very recently, they diversified their business from crude oil to chemicals with the acquisition of Sabic Industries. The leadership attitude. The board of directors have to find an opportunity in crisis. Chaos is a ladder. So the Saudi Aramco is coming with all these plans to work in line with the best interests of its shareholders. So this can be identified as good corporate governance practices in terms of leadership during a pandemic like COVID-19. Section 5 Conclusion. We have discussed the concept of ethics, business ethics, and corporate governance in the first few slides. Then we went in to understand the importance of this concept for an organization, and then we looked into the impact to leadership based on this concept during COVID-19 with examples. So my whole point of explaining or discussing all these topics was to enable my viewers and audiences to respond to this particular question. Do you think business ethics and corporate governance is a business dependent? Is it necessary to conduct the business? Is it an essential to the business? So you can answer to this question in the comment section below. If you think yes, uh, you can write whatever you have understood from this content, or you can put your own information. That's something that I have missed to look upon. And also, if you think no, you can provide your reasons. Section 6 References and Bibliography. References list. You can verify any in-text citation that I have quoted with this information that I have provided here. Bibliography list. This is the additional information that I went through to improve my knowledge in presenting this content. And also thank you very much for everyone for being with me till the end and for being such good attentive listeners. A big kudos to you all.